Morning. How's everybody? Where am I? There I am. Hi. Hello, hello, hello. How's everybody this morning? The catch here. My monitors are set so that I'm always looking sideways. So fuzzy. There it is. Okay. Everybody's getting here this morning. Good job. Ready to do some more looping. Let's see. What have we got so far? We've got 12. So we're missing a few. I gave them that Zoom video option. So yeah, don't forget you guys can watch the Zoom video later if you can't make it. But if you'd rather be in our seated class, you can. Now we're going to try to do a group activity today. So hopefully we'll have some people join in before then because it'll be more fun if we do. But if not, we'll split up our groups that we have. So you can see everybody, weirdos. There, some people are joining. Come on in. Looks like I've got the camera going here. I'm going to move this out of the way and turn it off. And hey, RJ, see you. Oh, I turned my video off. You can't see me now. He turned his off. I like seeing you guys too. All right. I would ask you to turn your video on, but I don't want to use up all that bandwidth. So we're used to kind of working this way. We'll just keep doing it that way instead of seeing all your pretty faces. But do yell if you have questions, making me stop. We're still working on our repetition section. Tonight, we have the loops with turtle, the review exercises, and the sum of squares program due. And hopefully those won't be a problem. We'll take a second to visit each of those today and make sure everybody feels confident about getting those done. A lot of them are already turned in. I know a lot of you are already done with those, so that's great. I'd like to do an activity. Do what?
Hope I'm not too late. I just joined.
Nope, you're fine. Come on in. We're just getting started. Now, Clee's asking about the collaboration invitation. Don't worry about that one yet. We'll try it here in a few minutes. I did have some issues. The IT department turned on two-factor authentication for staff over the holiday and Corona break, and so it did not want me to create a document. So we'll see if what I got created will work for everybody. And then we'll take a little extra look at what we need to do for that sum of squares program. So let's start though by doing some other practice programs that do some looping so that you guys can have a little bit more experience working with those. I'm gonna move this out of the way. And I probably have a million windows open again. Get down to the ones we care about. And I'm gonna open idle. And I'm going to create a new file. In this program, I'd like to prompt the user, whoops, sorry. I'd like to prompt the user to enter a name, like we'll say a family member's name or the name of their favorite song or something like that, until they're done. And so for every name they enter, we'll just print it back out to them on the screen and kind of just keep our loop going until they say they're done. So let's save that. And did everybody, were you able to access your OneDrive okay after last time?
Yes.
Yes? Good. Anybody else got any problems with it? I think that as long as you set up that account, you should be able to access your OTC OneDrive. I'm going to go there and save this. And last time, I prefixed things with chapter 5. I'll do that same thing. And this one, we're going to be, sorry, hang on. We're going to be working with a loop where we continue to do something until the user enters a special value to say that they're done. So we call that special value a Sentinel. So we're going to call this Sentinel controlled loop. So if you think about the word sentinel, it's sort of like a watchman, like somebody that's standing at the gate deciding if people can get in. And so this type of loop, we consider the keyword they enter as indicating that to the sentinel that they're done. All right. So we'll say that's what it is. Now you've used a Sentinel controlled loop. If you've ever used an application where you had to keep doing something, and then when you were done, you click done or something like that, that would be, that button would be acting as your Sentinel control. So whenever we're creating a Sentinel loop like this, we need to know what kind of value we're looking for. Let's say in our program, we're going to ask them to enter the word done. Whoops, I need to end my comment. So we're going to create a variable to compare the input to, and this is our Sentinel value, the value we're looking for to end our loop. I made it all uppercase because remember, if we have a variable that holds a constant value, we want to have that variable name be all in uppercase. Now in our script here, I'm not going to use any subprograms or anything because we just want to have our loop run. And I'm going to start out printing out some instructions. So I want the instructions to display, enter the name of your, how about name of one of your favorite songs. And I'm going to ask them for input. So I want to take their input and save it in a variable. Let's call that variable name. I'll go ahead and allocate that variable. It's a blank string. And now I can use it in our input statement. And I'm just going to give further instructions here. So I'm going to say enter the word, whoops, done to quit. So let's run that and make sure it looks okay. I don't like that enter being there twice, but I guess okay, it's okay. And then if I press enter, it is just done. So we need to add our looping construct. So we're going to use a while loop here, and we want to print out the name that was entered here. Print out the name unless they entered done. So while our name is not equal done, let's print it. Now, in order to keep my loop going, I'm going to have to ask them for input again, because right now I would be stuck in one of those infinite loops, right? Because I would just be printing that name over and over and over. I can try it. You can just watch if you want so you don't get stuck in one. Let me show you what will happen right now, because I haven't put in any information on our loop to update our control variable there. Oops, and I didn't use our constant value. So let me type in a name, and you can see that I've got that infinite loop. So a few things to fix. So in my while loop, I don't want to compare that to the word done because I created a variable. So I'm just going to compare it to our variable. That's a much better programming practice. And that way, if users come back in a couple years and they say, we don't like having to type the whole word done, we just want to enter a D, we could only have to change that value in one place. Okay. Now, because I want to keep our loop going, I'm going to duplicate our prompt. So I want to copy both of these lines of code because both of them were involved. And then I'm going to paste them right after that print statement. Now I need to indent my second line of code because my paste didn't indent it. So I'll press tab. Remember to be super careful with doing that because Python can get so angry about that spacing so easily. So if you do get errors where it says, you know, something about this space, click at the beginning of the line, back tab so that you're all the way to the left border, then press the tab key to indent as far as you need to get into the right place. Okay, so in our program now, we should be pretty well complete. Let's try it. So I'm going to enter a favorite song. Oh, what's a good song? I'll do Singing in the Rain. It's not really a favorite song, but with all this rain, it better be, huh? And then my program prints out the song that I entered and asks me for another. What do we want? Good day, sunshine. Can I put commas and stuff in there? I can. So because we're working with a string, whatever we enter is just going to be kept in that variable. And then when we print that variable, we'll see that value. Let's add one more line of code. I'm going to go ahead and type the word done and see if my program ends correctly. Yay, looks good. So I'd like to have one final message print out after the loop. So I want to add one more line of code. Now, I want this to be outside of the while loop. So I'm going to back tab and make sure I'm at the leftmost border. And I'll put in my print statement. Those are your favorite songs. Let's run it and make sure our final message comes out properly. We can get something in there. There we go. It's not really a favorite song, but whatever. And then make sure done takes you out of the loop and displays your final message. Everybody good? Yes, yes, yes.
Yep.
Yay. Okay, that's just a nice little program. We don't have a lot going on there, but it gives us that idea that that Sentinel value can be used to control our loop. Let's put a comment or two there about our while loop. Our main variable is kind of our loop control, right? Because it's the variable that we're checking in our while statement. Because it's our loop control variable, we need to make sure that that variable is initialized before the while loop and updated in the while loop. Because remember, if we don't update that value within the while loop, I ended up in that infinite loop. Because if I don't update my value, I am never going to have anything to compare to end that loop. Okay, makes sense? So whenever we're working with a while loop like this, in this case, we have a really good example of why we might want to use a while loop, because we don't have any idea how many times the users might want to enter a name here. So our while loop lets us execute the loop body over and over, however many times it takes. It's not dependent on some sort of count value. Now, the programs that we did last time, we made the while loop look at a counter, so we can do that, but the while loop is perfect for these kinds of situations. So let's look at a for loop in Canvas. Under week 10, there is this for loops PowerPoint. You don't have to download it, but if you want to, you can. And then part of it, we're going to kind of keep as our group activity. So we've seen our while loop now. We've practiced a little bit. Definitely need more. Getting started. But I think you're starting to get a handle on it. Sometimes we know how many times we want to do something, and the for loop can really help us and can maybe do more for us than a while loop. So I just went over these loop rules. We have to declare and initialize a loop control variable, right? Otherwise our loop won't get started right. We have to set up our loop condition looking at that control variable. And then we have to increment or update that loop control variable, like ask for another input or add to our counter. Either one of those things would be an update, and we must do that to end our loop. So when we're looking at a while loop, in this example, we have set up a counter to start at 0 and an end loop variable with a value of 100. Our while loop is going to be executed as long as the value of our counter is less than that 100. Each time our loop executes, we're going to print out the value of the counter and then add to it. So the things that are important in this loop are, well, everything, but basically, first of all, that we declare and initialize our counter. That's our loop control variable. We use the counter in our loop condition, and we update the counter within our loop body so that our loop can end someday. Now, a for loop does basically all of those things for us in a sense. When we use a for loop, we can actually tell Python, I want you to do this 99 times or 100 times, and then it will automatically take care of keeping track of that count for us of how many times it's been done. So here's one example of some Python for loop syntax. It's very fluid. There's a lot of different options that we can use. So you might find a for loop that works for you, and someone else might find one that works for them, and they might look rather different, but they're always going to start with the keyword for. After the keyword for, we are going to name some variable. Then we'll have the keyword in, and after that, we'll have some sort of indicator of how many times we want to update that variable. So let's look at one. Oops, that's not what I wanted to yet. That's all we want to look at there. Let's look at some in our own code. Let me find the one that I'm going to start with here. That should be good. Let's create a new file. I'm going to save and close out of my Sentinel controlled loop. And Isaiah is asking if the for loop syntax is different between Python 2 and 3. And there are some implementations from Python 2 that aren't supported in Python 3. We will experiment with some of those and see some of the differences. But in general, it's really a flexible statement, so you can do a lot with it. I'll show you some of the things that aren't supported. I think they decided there were like too many options in Python 2 that it made it almost confusing. So they eliminated some of them, which I think is good. So let's create a new file and let's save it. So we're going to call this one, this is really our first for loop. Let's put some comments. I just missed that one, didn't I? I'll fix it. I always worry a little bit about comments because, you know, sometimes there are things that people see for 15, 20 years and your name's there. You ever think that, but then sometimes your programs are running for a long, long time. Okay, so I want to look at just a real simple for loop. I can say for x in. Now, this is where things are a little bit different between the different versions. I'm going to put the keyword range, and then if you look at the help that's popping up in idle, you'll see that it says in the parentheses for range, I could either put a stop value like 100, or I could put a start value, a comma, and a stop value, and a comma, and then a step value, which would be how should X change every time my loop is executed. So let's try some of these different things. Let's try range 10. Now, because the for loop has a loop body, it is based on code syntax that requires a colon at the end of it. We saw that in our while loop too, that was just like our if statement. Because we have that indented body, we have to have a colon. So let's just print the value of X. Let's try running that. So we said that we want X to be in a range of 10. So it started X at 0, we printed X, and then it executed our for loop with updated values of X until we got to the value of 10. And notice we stopped, right? Because we didn't start at 1. All right, so that was if we just enter a stop value. Now, what if we enter a range? Let's say we want to do start at 1 instead of 0. So I could do from 1 to 10. Let's see how that changes it. It changed our starting value, didn't it? But we still ended before we got to 10. So if we actually wanted to see that number 10, we'd have to set 11 as our end value. So notice how that works with that for loop. It always is using that as a less than. It only executes while X is less than that value. And then the last thing we could do with our for loop is we can put in what we want the increment value to be. So let's say we wanted to increment by 3. Let's run that. So now we started at 1, we add 3 to it, we add 3 to it, we add 3 to it, and that was our last value. So that ends our loop. So cool, super cool. So notice how this for loop is taking care of all of those things for us. Let's think about it. In this example, X is our loop control variable. Oops, let me press the space bar. X is initialized to the start value or 0 by the for loop. X is compared to the ending value. And that's our test as our test condition. And finally, X is updated by the increment value each loop. So our for loop is just taking care of all sorts of stuff for us. It's super, super handy. Now, what if we had some other things going on? We want to, instead of having just numbers in our range, what if we want to use variables? Well, let's try that. Let's say we're going to create an end variable and set it equal to 20. And then we're going to use a for loop. And we're going to use that variable to control it. And we're just going to print out the value of y. Now, because we're just printing a bunch of numbers, we should probably annotate that a little bit. I'll put a space. How's that? They're pretty. All right, let's see what we get. Oh, it's mad at me. Must be string, not int. Where are we at? My print statement. So I need to make y a string. And then we see our first loop still was executing with that increment of 3. And then our y loop started up. We set our ending value to 20. And by using that variable, we are able to control that. So in our range statement here, anything that is a variable that contains a value that's a number can be used. So really, really handy. Now, another way I can use a for loop is pretty neat. I'm going to backspace. Is everybody okay syntax-wise? Let me know if you're running into any errors in your code so we can get you fixed, or comment them out so that you can try some of the other little snippets that we're trying here. I'd like to create a for loop that looks at a word. Now I can use double quotes or single quotes there. Shouldn't matter. I just can't mix them. So I have this string that contains this value, a word, and I'm telling the for loop for each letter in that string, I want to execute the loop body. So we can print out each letter. Let's try it. Okay, so that's pretty cool. So I can take that string and I can tell Python, I want you to use that to control this for loop, and I want to see each letter. So now we see that we had the letter A and then a space and then all of the letters in Word. So that's pretty cool. Now let's add a comment there. Use the for loop to process each character in a string. For our next little snippet, we're going to use a list. And we're going to use our for loop to process the entries in a list. We haven't really used a list before, but so we're getting a little bit of a preview, but it's pretty easy to use. So I'm going to create a list. And I create a list by using square brackets. And then I'm going to put all of the entries in my list. So there's my list. I have 4 things in my list, 4 words: Jill, Jack, Bucket, and Hill. In my for loop then, I can say for a word in that list, print out the word. And again, Python will take care of giving us each entry in this list. This list is an array, and we'll be looking at those in a couple of chapters in depth, but I wanted you to know that you could do this with this for loop now, because you might see some examples that do some things like that. So let's try running that. And so here's our word, and then at the very end is the output from our last snippet, our list items. Now, I'm going to give you a couple minutes. I want you to think about how I'm going to copy this. How could you update this to, for each word, process and print out each letter in that word? Go ahead and think about that while I check on Nico here. Yep, every letter and every word. Spit them out. Do you think of a way? Great. Show us? Let me stop my share so you can show us. Okay, someone show us what you got. We're getting there.
All right, this is on. Is this working?
Thank you.
Now speaking. Let's see here. Share screen. Do this. Okay, so my solution was to just make a list inside of a list, kind of a for a for, if that makes sense.
Perfect.
I have my base list of random things. I'm saying for every string entry in this list, do another loop for every char in every one of those strings and write this to that. to be able to do that, and it prints out every single character and every single thing.
Awesome. Let everybody see that for a second. Perfect. So just a nested for loop, and it really is, you know, just that easy. And sometimes in our heads, we just let it get all convoluted and confused. And just try it with Python. It makes it so easy to just try something and see if it does it the way you want. It's not going to hurt anything to try it, that's for sure. So errors won't hurt you. It's okay. Everybody got it? Thank you, Isaiah. Very
I'll
nice.
stop sharing now.
Sure. I'm going to take over. Okay. Okay, good question, Chelsea. Let me put mine back up. So, working? Can you guys see mine? It's being weird.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so yes, whenever our for loop executes, word will become a variable that can be used within the for loop. However, it's just going to be a local variable to that for loop. Let me show you. Once our for loop is over, if we try to print word, we'll get an error because that variable doesn't exist anymore. Made me a liar. Look, it showed the last value. That's cool, Python. That's a change. Very nice. So I lied. You can still get to it. That's very
I
interesting.
think it was in a previous version that error occurred.
Yeah, because it wouldn't let you get to it. So even though it's in that for loop, it's creating a variable that we can use. So that's awesome. Our variable, oh, go ahead.
Is for variable in other variable just basically shorthand for saying make the variable A the kind of X entry in variable B? Like it's actually an assignment statement in disguise. It's executed multiple times.
Right. Yeah. It really is. What do you mean, Chelsea? An example? We're going to do some more. Let's try it. Make sure we get an example of what you're looking for. Let's close this one because we have a lot of code snippets in it. And let's try some things more like what we had done before. So we see first off that for loop, oh, okay, hang on, we will. That for loop is really powerful and pretty easy to set up. Let's create a new file. And let's save this as a nested for loop, and we'll create the one that processes the words. Mine was like, no. I'm in the wrong folder, too many folders, guys. So let's make this chapter 5 nested for loop. Oops. I love my mechanical keyboard. I try to figure out how to make it be quieter for you guys, but it's just like, no, it wants to be loud. So let's try starting out with a variable that holds a sentence. So a little bit different than that list we were looking at last time. Yes, Isaiah, that would be really good. Isaiah was saying that for pseudocode, we could translate a loop saying for every entry in input Y, set X to that specific entry and run the loop once. Then go to the next value of X in Y. So that's a really good way of thinking about it. For this one, I want to start out with a sentence. And we'll just have our plain old sentence here. So in my for loop, I can say, oh, for each word in sentence. Now let's make sure that works right. Let's print out that word. Okay, that looks good. Now notice we have our spaces too, so that's okay, but we do have those. Is there something we could do just to complicate things a little bit to keep those from printing? Could I say if word equals a space, I want it to really be not, huh? And then I'm going to indent my print statement so that it only prints if that if statement is true. He's thinking, do I have the right Python syntax here for my not? That seems to have worked. And if you got some other syntax to work, great. But now we eliminated those space words. I wanted to put that if statement in too because I wanted you to kind of think about how we could nest all of these things and just kind of say, oh, that's no big deal because I just know now that I'm processing every word. If that whole word is a space, I don't want to do anything with it. Okay, so now we know if it's not a space, we want to print it. Whoops, I think I want to put my new line of code under our print. After we print that word, let's print each letter. I'm not sure about exploding my space. Okay, let's see if our code works. Now I have, where's my word? That seems wrong, doesn't it? It seems like we're getting extras. Let's try this code online. I was already printing letters. I was printing a whole word. Split it up weird, huh? So I want to make that sentence a list. Let's do it. Let's make it a list. In my sentence, put square brackets, whoops, around the beginning and the end. And then let's put a comma between each entry. I've gone brain dead, is that right? I had to look at something. I'm like, wait, how do you do it? Now I want each word in here to be its own string. So we'll change it up a little bit. And we'll make our sentence into more of a list. And then it will work a little bit different. Let's try it. Now that's more what I was visualizing. So notice how when I just had everything as a sentence, the for loop processed each letter because it just saw a whole series of different characters. And so to split up that sentence, it just gave me different characters. Once I changed it to be a Python list or an array where each word was a separate kind of entity, then the for loop could process it differently. So if something's not coming out the way you want, let's try that website where we can visualize our code. I can't. They changed their website. So I had to click on that visualize code or get help now option to go into the editor. And what I want to do is copy my code. Paste it onto the website. And then I'm going to visualize execution. Now, when I start out, the first thing I'm going to do is create this list. So here is our list. In memory, it is named sentence, and it has all of these different entries. Now we're going to go into our first for loop. So our for loop creates the word variable, and it puts the first entry from our list into that variable. We have our if statement that isn't doing much now. And then we're going to print out that word. So here it is up here in our print output. Now we're going to go into our inner for loop and start looking at each letter. So we see another variable has been allocated for our letter, and it starts out with the value T. And when we execute our inner loop, the next time it runs, it's going to give us the H. And you can see those printing out up there as we execute our loop. Now we got done with that first word. So we go back and continue processing in our outer loop. Now in our outer loop, as soon as we begin it, we're going to get the next value for word. So now it's set to cow. And we'll print that, and then we'll go into our inner loop and get each letter. So first our C, then our O, then our W, and then again, we'll be done with that word. So we'll return to execution of our outer loop, get our next word, it's jumped, and we can continue on watching that execute to see how those loops are working. Now, when you're working with looping constructs, whether it's a while loop or a for loop, this website is just super helpful. When I first started programming, I can't remember, I found some sort of debugging utility that let me visualize just a little bit what was going on, and it was very helpful. You guys are all not equal and great. All right, good job. So how's that look? I want you to really think about using this visualized site to execute some of your different code options so that you can see things working. All right. Now, some things that don't work, I think the big one is, let me try it, X range. Whenever we created our loop, we were able to just say that we want it to be in the value of 10. Well, in the older release of Python, there were several different keywords that they used to indicate that value list. One was X range. And if you notice, when I type that now, it doesn't turn purple because it's not recognized by this version of Python. So let's go take a look and see what happened with that. I want to know what's going on with it. Pick that first one, you know, just cause. Does it say anything helpful? It says range and X range are two functions that could be used to iterate a certain number of times for loops in Python. In Python 3, there is no X range, but the range function behaves. So let's see how it behaves. If we use the keyword range, that returns a value within that range to our for loop variable. The X range returns the generator object. So as you can see, it was quite complicated, and although it was lazy evaluation, and so it doesn't actually work anymore. In the activity that we're going to do today, if you encounter syntax like X range or range, you can assume that it just works the same way as putting parentheses without that specification, because it's just like further clarification of the for loop. So we're okay with just specifying the parentheses to give us the range. Okay, RJ, what can't you get to work? The not equal. I had to use the not keyword. Okay, let me show you what I want you guys to do now. We've done some practice. Oh, okay. Good questions, good questions. Let's try them and see. Let's close this file. And let's create a new one. And we're going to call this for loop with user input. And we'll try some things. everywhere here. So I have a feeling that what RJ is thinking about is maybe our assignment, which is great. So let's say I want to have a number. How about my number? That's going to be controlled by user input. So I'm going to prompt the user for that number. But I need to remember to change it to an integer. So we'll just prompt, please enter the desired number. Now we're going to assume that they want a multiplication table for this number. So let's say we're going to use a for loop, and we want the multiplication table to start at the number that they gave us and then decrease. So let's say we're going to call our for loop variable num. And we'll say that we want to start at my number we want to end at 0, and we want our update amount to be -1. And then I just want to print out num, and this is just a debugging step for me to make sure that that for loop is going to work correctly the way I'm thinking that it should, right? So instead of putting a bunch of code in here, I'm going to make sure that it's working the way I want, and then I can add additional features. So let's run this. Ill hill. Well, that didn't do very good at all, did it? So I've got my 10 starting out. But I don't know why I've got ill hill otherwise. Let's see if we add our range keyword. I don't know if that range keyword mattered or if my idle was messing up. I'm getting inconsistent results without the range keyword. So I'm going to use it. Sometimes when you're a developer, you're working within the bounds of your environment. So if something doesn't work, a certain way, you make it work the way that it will. And that's okay. It's great because it gives us flexibility in the job, and it makes things not just all cut and dried and boring. Okay, so I finally have the loop working the way I want it to. It's starting out at whatever value the user enters. It's running until 0, and it's decrementing. So it's going to be printing out that number. Double back here. Yeah, and I don't have 0. I wanted to make sure that it was ending before it got to 0. And we had seen that's the way that for loop works. So that should take care of it. Now, what if I want to do a multiplication table for that number? I could do an inner for loop. And we'll say that we want our multiplier to go from 1 to 6. We'll just do a multiplication table up to 5. Now I need a better printout than that. That's not going to be very good for me. So I think I'll print. What is that going to do? Let me run it. Are we going to get the values printed out, or are we going to get the results of the formula? Let's double check. What I'm getting is the results of the formula somehow. So let's put our formula within a set of parentheses to tell Python that we want to print out the result of that. Well, that's just not doing what I expect at all, is it? So if you look, I'm starting out with 10, and I've got my 10, and then it's using this somehow wrong. So I'm going to put that keyword range in again. I think I put in an increment value. It's like it's just incrementing with some weird random value. One, two, three, four, 5. I'm just getting all sorts of weird stuff. RJ, I would say it should work, but I'd almost be tempted to just use a while loop because it's just getting so upset with us, and I'm not exactly sure why. So something along this line. Now, let me get you guys off on something else, and I'll do some debugging on this and report back to you because it's being weirdo. So here's what I want you guys to do while I'm figuring that out, and then I'll show it to you. In Canvas, I've added the collaborations link. If you would click on that, and you might need to go to Office 365 and make sure that you're logged on first. But if you're logged on Office 365, you should be able to see this collaborations link. Hopefully it won't do that to you. I'm running as a student view here, so it won't let me look at it. But here's what you should be seeing. This is the original activity. So this is what we would be doing if we were in class. If we were in class, I would have a Python code snippet printed out around the room on some of those giant Post-it notes. And then I would give you and your team a color of Post-it notes to go around and write what the output would be from that code snippet and leave your Post-it note there as your answer. And then we would check to see how many different groups got the right answer. We have to adapt this activity a little bit because we can't do it quite the same way. So the posters would be out there, you would get your group and you would try to move around. I tried all these organizational methods, they never worked. Everybody's just blobs around the room. So what we're gonna do instead is a collaboration activity. So if you were able to get that opened, let me leave student view so I can try to open it. You should see this looping syntax activity. And I apologize that it's in a Word document. But each of these little images here are the code snippets. So you're going to get together with your study group. Now, you and your study group, the way I want you to get together is hopefully through these breakout rooms. And I think I'm going to have to, let's do, I'm just going to split you into 4 people per group. Can you guys get in a breakout room on your own? Do you see that in Zoom?
I don't see it.
Don't see it? So we might just have to, I'm just going to do the first 4. And then our collaboration document, let me see if I can, I don't know if any of you guys are going to have access to it. So let me just add it to everybody. Hopefully. It's thinking about it. Okay. Now, in Zoom, you should see a breakout room. See if you can enter that.
Where do I go for it?
I think, Isaiah, I think if you guys have study groups in Discord, that might be easier, but I don't know if everybody does. It should be on this Zoom toolbar, this breakout rooms.
Maybe hit open all rooms. That blue button.
Ah, good job. Okay, try that. Thank you. Well, Isaiah's awesome. We do want to set up study groups for Discord, I think, because Zoom won't let me set up the room unless you guys are already joined in the meeting, and that makes it kind of hard to get it set up beforehand. Okay, can you see the collaboration document? Can you see your other people in the breakout room? What I want is for you guys to work together looking at this document. And for this very first one, where'd you go, Vincent? Are you guys going off someplace else? Okay, go wherever you want. Just make sure you update this Word document. Now, here's the thing. You're going to look at each code snippet, and you're going to add a text box beside that and specify what the output would be. Sometimes there might not be any output. Sometimes it might be Python 2.7 syntax, where you might have to do some research and some looking to see what the output would be. Sometimes there may be another image close that has the answer. Ignore that because I might have messed up because I was trying to get it all created. Now, if you have any other question, do what?
I'm just going to set up like Discord rooms for everybody because the breakout rooms have erupted into chaos and people are already messaging me like, what in the world do I do?
Are they? Okay,
Yes.
don't use them then.
Because we can't hear this stream. We're literally disconnected from it. All of what you just said has reached about half of the class.
Oh, no.
The rest of them are stuck in breakout rooms. So I'm going to go get everybody on Discord into their groups. And
okay, awesome. I'm going to close those. Okay, they're closing. In eventually.
Unfortunately, I don't think I know who's in what study group.
Let me bring that up.
Thank you.
Like I couldn't even see your screen.
I know that's what everybody was saying. I didn't know it was going to be so awful. Okay, don't like breakout rooms. Isaiah's going to create a chat group on Discord for each study group. So just a sec, he's got that under control.
Does Alex even have a Discord? Oh, never mind. He's offline.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my group's already got a Discord one.
Okay, great.
5.
Good.
Yeah, thanks. Stop that.
Okay, you guys have got it under control. I'm gonna, like I said, try to debug this program while you're working on that. And I think that we'll look at the results on Tuesday because it's gonna take a little while to get all that set up. And I want you guys to have enough time to look at those different examples. There's some really good examples. Normally, because you're walking around, you wouldn't be able to try the code snippets. If you guys want to try them since you're stuck on the computer, that would be fine. Just don't do that first off. Try to figure out what the output would be before you try it. Okay, so I'm going to stop my share so Isaiah can take over.
Well, keep in mind, I'm going to need your Zoom to show me where those things are. I'm still trying to get links.
Oh, sure. There you go.
Okay, 2 and 6 are set up. Mine's already set up, and so is what's his face, RJ's. So I guess all that's left is 4 and 1.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm already in a study group with Chesley H, Surmetalodon, and Zofad.
Yeah, Metalodon guy's me.
So you guys are set.
Do you want me to add you to all these study groups too? Or
No, that's fine. You guys are fine.
Discord's blocked me because it thinks I'm a spam bot.
You're going too fast.
Yeah.
Please asking how I want you guys to submit this project. I'll see your updated collaboration document, so you shouldn't have to do anything as long as it's on that Word document. I'll be able to see it. And we'll just look at it next time and make sure it makes sense to everybody. I tried to find some weirdo examples.
It seems that the entirety of study group 1 is offline.
Uh-oh. They might have a Discord already set up too, I bet.
It's a possibility.
Yeah, because they took off really fast. Study group 1, do you have a Discord? Are you okay? I think they're good.
Let me catch up to what I was actually supposed to be doing in class. We're supposed to be getting something from Word, right?
Yes.
It's not the Week 10 lab, it's something else, right?
Actually, it is under collaborations over on the left.
Okay. Let me see if it'll allow me to access that now.
Can you guys see each other's updates?
Okay, it's just an image.
Yeah,
Okay, I
Ethan
think
in there.
that's good.
Okay, if you can see each other's if you can see each other's entries, don't look at them. Try to pretend that you can't. I tried to set it up per group, but obviously, yeah, it's not, didn't do it that way, did it? So just ignore each other's stuff and really just focus on those loops and figuring out what they would do. Even like I said, if you want to take them and put them in idle so that you can try running them yourself, or take them and put them on that Visualize website so that you can try running them yourself. We'll make the best out of it. This is definitely one of those things that's better as an in-class activity, but we will figure it out and get it to work online so we can do it.
What are we supposed to do once we get to the looping syntax activity?
Update the document with a text box that says what the output would be.
So we just need to record this in some sort of document and submit it? Or
It's in that collaborations document.
Oh.
So just update it. And it looks like everybody is being able to see everybody else's. So just ignore everybody else's and try to post yours. And then I'll be able to see who they came from. So when I look at it, it'll be marked with which study group made which entry.
I cannot see hold on. Edit document, edit browser.
Yeah, make sure
Is
you
that what we're
edit in
looking
the
for?
browser so everybody can see your changes.
I see there's 10 plus people collaborating on this and a bunch of text boxes. So yeah, it looks like I'm in the right spot.
Having some access to the same document for some reason.
Yeah, when I try to do it with Google, that works better. The two-factor authentication thing is being super helpful with all of the other stuff going on. So yay! It wouldn't work for anything. So. Okay, is everybody getting to stuff? Dylan said he saved a copy, and that's fine too. If you want to do that, send it to me or something so I can see your study group's copy. That would be fine if the other entries are distracting to you. So do the best that you can, and I will post that updated code to Discord, hopefully here in a few minutes, if I can get it working. And we'll take a look at that some more. We're going to work on for loops and while loops again next week. So no worries, we've got lots more practice, and I want you to practice. Let me know if you're having any trouble or if you have any questions. We didn't really get a chance to look at the turtle looping. So again, just send me a message or let me know where it's confusing to you, because I think enough people have it turned in that I can assume that it is self-explanatory, but I know we have some exceptional people.
So we should just put it down in here, even though there's tons of other people doing the exact same thing.
Unless you want to save your own copy and copy it, that'd be fine too.
Okay.
If you make a copy of
We
it,
can save a copy for ourselves.
or for your group. But yes, if you want to do screen sharing on your Discord app and just have one person update it. Sorry, it's being a pain. Don't spend an undue amount of effort. The main thing, like I said, is to look at the code snippets and try to understand what they're doing. So that's our big thing here. We won't have a lot of points associated with this or anything. We just wanted to experiment with it. I'm going to disconnect unless anybody's got any questions right now. And I'll look forward to hearing from you if you have any sort of problems or need anything. Thanks. Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Bye.